right, good morning, folks. It's Friday, November 22nd, 2013. Welcome to RenmanMusicandBusiness.com. My name's Steve Rennie. I am the Renman, and this little program is called Renman Live. Hey, folks, if you're looking to learn about today's music business, you are in the right place. Every week, we're getting together with some of the smartest, most talented folks around to talk about all the burning issues of the day, and we want you, our viewers, to be part of the conversation. Today, folks, we got a good one. Joining me today is Mr. Nate Ruess, who is the singer-songwriter for multiple Grammy Award-winning band called Fun. We'll be taking some questions from the website, the chat room, and from the Renman Live hotline for all you bold folks looking to move to the front of the class. All right, folks, if you're looking to do something great in this music business, or anywhere for that matter, you're likely going to need a little help. So hopefully today I can provide you some of that help. But for me to do it, I need a little help myself here. So first off, let me introduce you to our wonderfully talented team here. Over in the corner, back in the pilot's chair, Mr. Darren LeGros, who was off working higher paid gig, I guess, at Fox, and he's also doing a little work with my friends in Incubus. Thank you. Nice to have you back, D. Okay. To his right is Mr. Indispensable, the pride of Cleveland, already fetching phone calls. His name is Joltin' Joe Lilac. Folks, be nice to Joe. He'll cut you right the freaking hell off, okay? Jeez. Okay. You know, our guest today wrote a record called Problem Dogs. We've got some problem dogs around here. We've learned one thing. You got to have on your team some four-legged guys. There's our eight-legged groove machine. Duke, the grizzly old veteran on the left, and James Buck Brown on the right. You'll see Duke is resting comfortably here on the couch in a minute, and the little guy, he'll be a pain in the ass, and we'll have to throw him out of here later. Folks, you know, we got a saying around here at the world headquarters, you know. We want you to learn, the only way that's going to happen is if you don't ask, you don't get anything, okay? And you don't learn anything either. So if you came here to learn about the business or learn something about our guests, get on the phone, get in the chat room, and talk to us. But to help you along, we have somebody. My friend, Mr. Cody Romness, former USC football man. We got Cody. Oh, there he is. Oh.
What's up, everybody?
Look at him, man. Going backward hat today, huh, Cody?
Hey, man, you got to say rock and roll when you get the rock and roll stars in here.
Yeah,
man.
sure.
What's up, everybody? I'm Cody. I'm Cody R. in the chat room. I've been chatting with all you guys. You guys are fired up to be here, and we're fired up to have you. So I'm going to tell you how you guys can get involved. We have a hotline number that we would love you to call and get involved. That's 310-465-9067. Another way to get involved, chat room, ask your questions. If they're relevant and they're on time, we'll pop them in. Timing and lighting is everything. Part 3, we have a live tab. So I saw a lot of you guys submitted questions beforehand. So what you do, go to our website, renmanmb.com, click the live tab, find the person that you want to ask a question for, and get your question in ahead of time. And then lastly, any general questions about the music industry you have, we have an Ask Renman tab on our website. Click that, put the subject, enter your question, submit it, and the Renman personally answers it himself. Whew, now I'm done.
That's true, man. I've been answering some of those questions. I'm going to be on a plane for a long time, so if you got a lot of questions, I got a lot of time coming up here shortly. So I'm happy to help out, folks. Remember, you don't ask, you don't get. You don't learn anything. That would be freaking a horrible thing to do. Code, to encourage the folks, because some folks are just shy no matter what we do. We're not above, you know, twisting some arms and greasing the wheels. Cody, tell the folks what they get should they be bold enough to participate today.
All right, guys. Coffee, tea drinkers, check this fine mug out. It's yours if you call in. Next, for all you computer users, desktop users, the mouse pad.
That is awesome.
Get down with the mouse pad. Third, we got a little motto around here, and we call it, fuck the gatekeepers. If you guys want to get one of these, call in on the phone. And lastly, for you dreamers out there, Dream It, Do It t-shirt. Step 1's dreaming, step 2's to do it.
I think that Dream It shirt's for the artists. The fuck the gatekeepers definitely for the managers. All right, folks, there you have it. We want you to get involved. We want you to be a part of it. And so let's get after it right now. Okay, our guest today is one of the most successful singer-songwriters in the music business today. He is also the frontman and singer for multiple Grammy Award-winning band Fun, whose infectious singles We Are Young, Some Nights, and Carry On entertained and inspired music fans around the world. But the story of how he got where he is today, I think, is inspiration for other artists who are dreaming of doing something big in this business. We're going to talk about all of that and more right now. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Nate Ruess.
Yay.
All right, how you doing? All right, there you have it. Thank you. All right, we're not above cheap showbiz gags here. How you doing, Nate?
I thought that I was hanging out with Renman today.
The Renman?
Yeah, I thought that Renman and I were going to smoke weed, but I guess I'm hanging out with Renman.
Well, you know, both those mans have been known to do both, and you know, we have a couple breaks scheduled in here. You wouldn't be the first guy. I had to settle down a little bit here.
You know what? Sadly, I don't smoke, but.
All right. Well, you know what? I didn't say I did either, folks. That was hardly a confession. It was
We can start today. I didn't realize that. Like, this is probably one of the only interviews that I get to say fuck constantly.
Oh, you can. Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, you can.
Oh.
Now, we have a lot of youngsters out there. I know we're going to have a couple parents watching because some gal called yesterday on our hotline, and I asked her where she lived, and she said, I can't tell you. And I said, how old are you? She goes, I'm 12. And she was from Georgia. And I think her parents had properly prepared her for internet predators. I got a lot of predator in me, but I don't do it on the internet, folks. So, Nate, we started this wacky web show with the idea to kind of help people that are trying to be in the music business, that are dreaming of doing something big.
Okay.
And artists, maybe folks want to be manager, A&R guys or whatever. And the only way I know how to do that is by being honest and upfront with people. So we put together a whole bunch of clips. I've interviewed a whole bunch of smart people. I want to play a little clip at the top that I hope will set the tone for today's thing. Play this clip and I want to get your response to it.
Most rock bands, there's a 10-year gestation period. 10 years between the time they started making music and the time shit's really going off for them. Think about it. I mean, My Morning Jacket, Modest Mouth, Death Cab for Cutie. Incubus, right? 10 years. 10 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get into it, right? Now, let's go. Instant grab. Because they aren't really willing to die for the craft. They want to be a rock star. They don't want to live a rock star. And, and that's where I see a lot of it is like, a lot of it has to be that no matter what happens, this band or this person's making music, regardless of all the things around it. And ultimately, they will find a level of success if there's talent there.
That ring a bell for you, Mr. Ruess?
Yeah, it's like the Malcolm Gladwell, like 10,000 hour type of situation.
Yeah.
It's weird. I was signed at 19 years old, by a major label, dropped by 24, and self-released. Had a lot of success. Next thing you know, band breaks up, and I got to start another band, and I got signed to another label eventually too.
Well, we're going to talk about all that. Let me ask you this. You know, one of the questions I've asked everybody when they've been on the show, whether it's an agent, manager, producer, artist, is, you know, how you got started in business. What inspired you in the very first bit to do this crazy thing for a living?
I didn't want to get a real job.
Okay.
My parents are both pretty blue collar, and so they'd like constantly have my sister and I like. We'd be breaking our backs. Like we'd get back from school and they'd put us like straight to like yard work or doing like something like that. And I thought to myself, how do I never have to do anything like this?
Any musicians in the family?
Yeah, I have an uncle who was on Broadway.
Really?
So and he's pretty brilliant. My grandma plays piano pretty well. And my dad is sort of like a hack musician.
So he plays a little bit. So you had a little music happening around the
he
house.
plays more music than I do.
Well, we're going to talk about that later because that was something I thought was interesting when we first had a chance to meet. You know, for all your songwriting skills, you'd think you're a piano player, but you're actually not a musician, I suppose. Let me ask you this. You mentioned you had an uncle that was in the Broadway performance. It's funny, the first time I saw you guys at the Universal Amphitheater, and I'd heard the record, and like everybody, and saw you in action, and I thought you guys had a real showbiz flair. Any of that you can chalk up to your uncle?
No, I think that feels more like punk rock to me, to us. We all are into, I wouldn't say we're that into musicals anymore, but there was a time when we were kind of into it, but over time, like we've always been into kind of like punk music, and that's what we grew up on. That's when I really wanted to start making music and being in a band, was in my teens, and like being some sort of punk rocker. And I think that's something that me and the other guys in the band, we all kind of like agree on. And when we started the band, we thought like, well, you know, let's kind of try and bring that energy to the stage.
Now, you started your first band back in high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you told a funny story about, you're not a musician. I always wonder who decides to be the singer, right? And you've told a funny story about when it came down to the singer?
Well, I guess the weird thing about that was I just felt like my uncle was on Broadway, like I had to be the singer. There's just nothing else. I was too lazy to learn an instrument. And like I loved music enough that I was like, I'm the singer. And everybody was like, oh, sure, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I'm always interested because, I've worked with bands my whole life, and you kind of try to, you get a sense for the personalities in bands. So
Who wants to be the bass player? That's what I want to know.
That's what I'm talking about. So if somebody said to me, hey, Ren, you want to be the drummer or the bass player? I'm going, fuck no, man. I'll maybe lead guitar, right? But the truth of the matter is I would have rather been Mick Jagger.
You know what? I would have rather been the bass player. If I could actually, if I had the motor skills, I would be the bass player, without a doubt.
I'm not fucking buying it, Ruess, okay?
I mean, there's nothing better. Like, the bass player just sits back, he's grooving. Like, I have to, prance around and...
Yeah, well, somebody has to prance around. And you mentioned prance. One of the first concerts I saw was the Rolling Stones, and there was no better prancer than Mick Jagger. You must have seen some of his old stuff.
Yeah.
He was the king.
Apparently he's still the king.
He's still pretty good at it. I'll tell you what, you bring him in at 70 years old into a party, and there's some 18-year-old that wants to have a go with him just for fun, just to say she could. I know that's a little twisted. Those mothers and fathers are going, oh, God, it's happening. He's turning into an internet predator right now.
I'm saying it right now. That's what I'm thinking. That's what's going through my head right now.
I take that back. The MILFs out there would be feeling good about it. Hey, you know what? We get lots of questions from musicians here. You mentioned that about different items and things, and one of the things that comes up all the time is this idea of location, right? You started in Phoenix. I know that at some point along the way, you decided to move to New York. Was that before or after you formed the format?
That was right as the format was ending.
Okay.
I had gotten into a relationship in New York, and a lot of my friends were out there, so I just decided that, you know what? I had just been spending a lot of time in New York at the time. But as soon as the format had ended, I think the next day I pretty much just booked a ticket, moved to New York.
Let's talk about the format a little bit. It's your first, real band. You got signed when you were teenagers, right? So many artists think that, oh wow, I got signed to a record deal, right?
Yeah.
I've made it, right? Which the truth of the matter is that's kind of like getting in the starting gate at the Kentucky Derby. It isn't the finish line; it's the starting line. Fair comment?
Yeah, I thought it was the finish line.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially growing up in the punk rock scene too. At first, you were, you were told to kind of reject all labels. You just loved your DIY punk rock label, and you always wanted to get signed to one of those. And so that was a goal as a kid. And then as we just started to develop it, evolving a little more musically and being we don't have to be so narrow-minded. Then suddenly it was now then we can get signed to a major label. And once we're signed to a major label, then that's it. We're done.
Yeah, and how did that work out? You put out a couple of records. You put out, Interventions in Lullaby 2003. Did pretty decent.
I mean, at the time, I suppose it did okay. We were signed for a lot of money. We had a song that went on the radio in Arizona, just took off, caught on like wildfire. That was back, before the internet was really... I feel so weird saying these things.
Imagine how I feel, Nate. Okay, I'm going to keep calling you kid.
I need this. Thank you, buddy.
He's fine with that.
It was right at the time that the internet was. I'm sorry.
He's cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your concern, and so does he.
I'm sorry. I'm checking your pulse.
Yeah, he's okay. He'll let you know he's here later, okay, and then we'll take a break while you recover. Trust me.
It was right at the time of the internet, and it would basically radio was still kind of playing local acts, and our song just kind of went straight to the top in Arizona. And so next thing you know, every major label was courting us, and then there was the bidding war, which is kind of something that
doesn't happen anymore. No.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on forever,
Yeah.
but next thing you know, then we had 3 songs at the time. 3 songs. We got signed to a major label contract. And we had to get our shit together fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And because the reality did sink in, oh no, these people are paying us a bunch of money and we have to make an album. And there was at that point it was strange to see kind of what we wanted to be as artists, and where we shifted in songwriting on that album, because we felt kind of like an obligation.
It's funny. We talk about these things all the time, in things that I've, that epiphanies that have come to me over time. And artists, kind of live in their own little bubble of thinking it's all about the art, and then you get in the music business and find out something that I learned very early on, which is that money, I don't give a fuck whose money it is, wants an opinion, right? As soon as they give you money, it's like, hey Nate, I love you, but I'd love you more if you did this, right?
Yeah, and this is something that I've learned over time. I mean, they're paying it. You willingly took their money. They can willingly have an opinion.
Yeah.
I've found ways to kind of work around it. I think the most important thing is just surrounding yourself with people that you actually trust. And you can have people that might work for you or work at the label who you don't trust, but they're going to have to get through a real thick wall before they can can tell you anything.
Yeah. Well, a key part of that is having a great manager. You've got a great manager, Dalton Sim.
Yes.
Talk about how important that is in the whole scheme of things. If you're out there trying to make art, but you got to go through this freaking quagmire called the music business, helps to have a caddy, doesn't it?
I would call him more than a caddy for sure. He's the putter.
Okay.
And that's inevitably where you win, right?
Yeah, you got to sink it. See, we're gonna take these kids to a whole different place today. Yeah, no, you got to get it in the hole. In the vernacular.
And I mean, I can't say enough about our manager, and I'm very lucky that, I mean, we're all very lucky. He's one of my best friends as well, and that's really what matters the most. People don't understand. I think people think that they, should get some slimy guy who happens to be connected, and that's about the worst thing you can do. You need someone that you can talk to.
Yeah, no, it's a very personal, relationship. Not unlike being married in some ways, and you're going to inevitably go through some ups and downs and some disagreements. But at the end of the day, people have asked me how I've been with my guys. It's trust. The manager's got to trust the artist to deliver that, and I think if the trust goes both ways, that's how you find something that works and that's productive for everybody. Yeah,
I mean, I think we shared similar goals early on, and at the time that he had signed us, he and still is managing a band, Guster, and Guster, they were, I think, when I had met them when I was in the format, they were 36 and still playing like 4,000 seaters at colleges. And I thought to myself, like, because at that point I'd given up on the mainstream music industry, and I thought, like, this is all I want.
Yeah.
Like, all I want is to be able to make the music that I want to make and for there to be an audience.
Yeah.
And in the format, we'd started to get that. And at the beginning of Fun, that was something that we were working towards as well. And Dalton was such a massive part in that. So then you kind of fast forward, and suddenly we've got the song that's on the radio, and now our like focus has completely changed. And to watch Dalton still take that, I'm gonna build a band mentality. Like I'm gonna make it about the fans, and I'm gonna make it about the band, and just about the people that are coming to the shows. They know that this band's gonna be around, and they're gonna be true to themselves,
and that you give a shit.
I don't give a shit.
Well, he says that, folks. But I know, it's funny. We had Dalton on the show early on, and I'll say something else about Dalton Sim while we're talking about Dalton. Early on, I met him when he managed a band called Ben Queller, right, and who went out on the road with Incubus. And at the time, I hope Ben Queller's not away. He didn't really want to go on tour with my guys, and Dalton did a great job of smoothing it and getting them to the right place, which is what sometimes managers have to do. And it turned out that he really enjoyed it. And the thing I remembered about Dalton is I hadn't talked to him, 7, 8 years, until I called about Fun. We were doing a show on the breaking the bands, right? And we wanted to talk about Fun. And so I was, when I first started, was hopeful that people would help out, but I had no expectations. I remember calling Dalton, and Dalton said yes so fast I couldn't believe it. And he said it because, you know what? You helped me. You listened to me when you didn't have to. So you know what? I'll be happy to do this. And those kind of people are the ones you want to be in business with, in my experience.
Well, I mean, that's you know what? Let's segue to the next subject. Loyalty.
Yeah.
Is absolutely important, and I watch Dalton be loyal every single day, and so I know he's not making bad decisions on our behalf.
Yeah.
Because I see how loyal he is to us, and I see how loyal he is to everybody else around him. You know, a lot of times people would see like that as a chance to kind of pounce on it, but what I don't think people understand about Dalton is he's also from Boston. So
Yeah, you know, people in this business, and I could go off on it, but I can tell you, you know, a lot of times people in this business mistake willingness and good manners for weakness. I've had that happen a few times, and I believe he's from Boston, and I'm not from Boston, but a few people that have wanted to test that, you know, have found out that it's, you know, you got to be strong at a certain point in the game, and not everybody's going to agree with you, but the way you get away with it is by being honest, by being true, and people know that we have an honest disagreement next, right?
Yeah.
We move on.
Yeah, I mean, my probably one of my best friends in the world is a gatekeeper, so to speak, but the greatest gatekeeper ever, and fuck him.
Yeah.
And I asked him yesterday. I'm like, we were at dinner last night. I said, when was the last time that someone yelled at you? And he's like, yelling's just not, like, no one yells at me because I don't yell at anybody. Yelling's not in my nature. You know, like, it's interesting. You see people try and use their scare tactics. In the music industry, it exists. And
Oh, yeah. It does. My youngest son has walked in the office a few times when I've been getting amped up. And I don't consider myself a yeller, but I do get wound up. And I remember him asking me one day, he said, why are you like getting on that guy? I said, you know, Eb, some people just don't respond to reason. And you've met a few of those, so every once in a while you got to turn it up, but it's not someplace you want to live. You know, the format, you got signed to the format, you know, you got into the game, you find out some realities of it, and at some point in the game, you kind of run out of gas. The Electra folds into Atlantic, you get a whole new team of people. I'm sure the first thing they told you is, we love your band, but don't sit down so fast, right? And then you're off the label, and now you're out there, what, 6, 7, 8 years into your career?
that would probably be about 5 or 6 years.
Okay, and now the dream, and now we're like in freaking Neverland. You know, how did you guys react to that?
We gave up on the label right after we'd finished making the album. Mm-hmm. I remember we listened to the album, and I don't want to deter anyone that loved that album. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, it was great, it was something special for us. But at the time, we finished it, and we thought, like, this isn't who we wanted to be.
Okay.
And it went straight back to that punk rock thing. When we were kids, a lot of us were like kind of running a scene in Arizona, putting the shows together, doing everything DIY. It was this punk rock thing. Like our manager at the time, who was just horrendous, but he was a kid. He was putting on all the shows in Arizona, and so we went back to if you go play live, it's just like the Guster thing. If you go play live and you show yourself, like there will be people who are gonna start to follow, and so we turned around. We got an agent who had done a lot of those bands at the time, Matt Galley, and he just put us like right on the road, and we started going on the road, and we started seeing what that did, as opposed to trying to put your song, fighting just to put your song on the radio, or fighting just to keep up with that kind of the 1%.
Yeah.
And it was an epiphany. It was amazing. Here we are, like suddenly we're professional musicians. We're making money.
Yeah.
Being a live band, playing for people, and having a like what felt like a real following. We could write whatever songs we wanted. There was no emphasis on whether it was a smash or anything like that. We started getting. I mean, I remember I just got so cocky. I was at the absolute like fuck the label aspect of things. I mean, I just started writing songs. I just started writing in my head, and I had this massive concept for this album, and I remember we were in between managers at the time, and the label stuff was just starting to shift. And here we are. We're completely sustainable at this point. We've got fans. We're playing, sold out shows, 500 seaters, whatever it is. We're in a van, but we feel great. We met with this manager, and I told her like my ideas for the album, and she called Sam, my partner in the format, the next day, and she was like, "Nate's fucking crazy. I'm passing on you guys. Like he's just fucking nuts. he's never going to amount to, like, she said something like, he's never going to amount to anything. Like,
Those
you
famous
should
lines.
get out while you can. And eventually he found a manager who was willing to take us on. And at that point, like, things were really starting to go down with the label. Like, they had switched over. We were now on Atlantic.
Yeah, that's never good.
Everybody was telling us they liked us, but we had this albatross of a contract. Mm-hmm. It was pretty crazy.
So you were like the bonus babies, right?
Yeah.
And now
we were like one of the last big contracts in the major label world.
For the folks out there that are trying to, this is the part about when people talk about the music business and why you can't teach in school. These are the things that you just have to walk through the minefield to learn, and that whenever you get a change of command, shall we say, new president, new label or whatever, it just never works out well because you aren't their baby, right? And there's a whole new scorecard and a whole new mayor, and you just can't be their baby. I've seen it a million times.
Especially if you're one of those bands that's still on the come up. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to be honest, no one cares about artist development anymore. It means nothing.
They don't have the patience for it, I think, anymore. It requires some getting down in the dirt.
Absolutely. I have a friend, Anna Walker, and her dad is Lenny Walker.
Legendary guy.
Legendary guy in the music industry. And they're talking about the bands in the 70s and how there was all this emphasis on artist development. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, because of the internet, you can take a young band and they might have a good song and you can just throw them out there and chances are that they're gonna, it could stick, but you're probably not going to see anything after that.
But interestingly, Nate, whether you guys were conscious of it or not, you were doing a bit of the artist development work on your own. That going out and playing, that going out and developing a live audience, all of that is what would be in my world would be artist development. But it wasn't being done by the label, the band. This was the whole fuck the gapers. You got to be willing to do that stuff yourself.
Absolutely, and I remember at the time in the format when we were getting courted, someone was like, "This band needs to develop," and our thought was like, fuck you, we're not going to develop. Like, we're ready to go right now. Who wants to be told that they're gonna need to take some time to do something? Mm-hmm. Like, I was so obsessed with music at the time. Like, no one could tell me. I had all the answers.
Of course you did, because you were young and you were inexperienced, so you didn't know how dumb you were. Right?
Yeah,
that's what I've learned over the years.
But here's something. Now I have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. No. Here's what you learn when you look like this, folks. Boy, the answers come and go. It's like a good round of golf. Just when you think it got it goes away. Anyway, I want to talk about. Let's move on to this thing. With the format, there was a place in there, and I've watched it happen with a few bands that I've managed. And it's never fun. At some point, you get to the end of your rope with each other, and one of our members had a question about that I want to ask, and then I want you to talk about it. Take it away, Todd.
Yeah, this question came in from Kyle. And the title was, how do you know when to move on to a different project? And he said, when do you know when it's time to pack up and start again with a different group of people? Can one member of a band be enough of a driving force, or do all members need to really want it?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I think that, bands are interesting in general, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
You're talking about a lot of personalities, a lot of egos. And so as an adult now, as I consider myself to become an adult, you wonder, like, why am I still playing with other people? Or and I mean that in like a school kid type of way, like, because when you think about getting into a band, you've got this kind of like, it feels so much like you're joining a team.
One for all for one.
Yeah, and as you get older, you start to separate. You become your own person. You start to have
you grow up.
You grow up. You develop your own personality, and you're thinking, why am I still hanging out with and you consider yourself a kid as well, but you're like, why am I still hanging out with these kids? And it's because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing, and you get to learn from each other, and if you pick the right people, which I've been very fortunate, I think, in both bands, to get to work with incredible people. You might fight a little bit, but if you all want it, then I think that you can all make it happen, and communication is key.
But at some point, even with the format, you guys decided, enough's enough, and you take a break from your partner. I mean, was that a friendly thing, or was it just you guys are running out of gas?
It was friendly, but it was friendly. No, I mean, I didn't want it to end, but I can be difficult when it comes to songwriting.
Well, at least you know that. Do we got a question on the phone there, Joe?
Yeah, we do. We have Sam Northern.
Sam Northern. Where's Sam from?
I guess the North.
Okay, let's take it. Sam, you on there with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Sam, you're on with Nate Ruess. You got a question for Nate?
Yeah. Hi, Nate.
Hi, Sam.
Just coming off of a mass tour, do you feel ready to begin writing songs again? Also, do you feel like it's going to be hard to tie new songs into your set list since you've been playing others for so long?
Great question. See, you know what? First of all, Sam, I just want to say that in this business, you unfortunately have to do interviews, and people ask you about what color pajamas you have, and that is, it's really nice to be actually asked a real question. So yes, we just got off of tour. You know, with albums, I always start to conceptualize first. I like to put, like with some nights, I wanted to put a couple of pieces together. So I like to take time. I don't really necessarily write. I give myself 5 minutes every day to just kind of think about it, whether I'm in the shower or not. And I think, okay, well, what's going to be the first song? What's going to be the last song? How do I kind of fill it in? And what'll happen is I'll start to keep developing it. And then eventually someone says, like, dude, you got to get into the studio. So I'll spend a like solid month kind of like writing it, and then I'll show the guys. We'll work through a couple of things, and then we'll go into the studio and record it. And so I'm still in that early process. And at first, just because the last 2.5 years have been so long, I didn't want to like give anybody the pleasure of knowing when the next album would come out. I would just be like, you know what, it's coming out when it's coming out. But I've now been home for 3 weeks, and at first I was like, I'm done, I'm out. 3 weeks in, and I'm already starting to. I'm scheming right now. So hopefully we'll get cracking sooner rather than later.
All right.
Yeah, we're all real excited.
Thank you.
All right, Miss Northern, that was pretty good stuff there. I'm glad you called in. All right, let's play. We're going to play a little because Nate's mic is getting a little dodgy, so we're going to play a little bit, and we're going to move on and talk about. Is that better, Darren?
How's this?
Okay, just going. He's our audio engineer for Incubus on the side of the stage, so he's used to working with guys like you.
There's nothing. I yell at if you're an in-ear monitor guy, I will yell at you all day.
That's Darren. Can you hear him, Darren?
Oh, yeah, no, I heard.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about what he was saying. I'm talking about his actual.
Our poor in-ear monitor guy, Super Dave. He's one of my favorite people on the entire tour, and I spend most of my time. I expect him to read my mind.
Sure.
You know, he's standing on the side of the stage, and I'm singing, and I'm not getting enough of Jack's guitar, and I'll be like,
What up?
like what? You can't like just listen to mine as opposed to like 7 different people that are doing the exact same thing.
It's funny you mention that because for all you folks out there that dream of being on the tech side of working with the band, and there are plenty of people that have all kinds of visions about how they want to be in the music, but I can tell you being that in-ear monitors guy is like being a fucking ordnance guy in Iraq, man. You stay in there long enough, you're going to get blown up. Darren, though, has a wonderful talent of getting along with the guys, and he's been our longest running, I think, till the end guy now for the band. You know, me, he's a little fucking pissed off with, though. Okay, because I turn out to be worse than everybody. All right, do we have another question there, Joe, or can we move on a little bit? Okay, is the mic problem sorted out?
Just keep going.
Keep going. Okay, so you just keep going. All right, so let's talk about fun. Format done. You move on to fun. The story's been told, but briefly, tell you hooked up with those guys and you decide, okay, we're going to give this another go, and it's going to be called Fun.
Well, I had known Jack and Andrew since the Format days. They were both kind of doing the same thing in their respected bands, and so having toured with them, I thought that Jack was just the most incredible guitar player that I'd ever seen, and he really put something into it. And he at that point, I guess he had become one of my best friends as well. So that also helps. But I'll just totally throw that off and just praise his ability for a second. And I just wanted to be surrounded by that level of passion and enthusiasm. it's tough with the way that I write songs. You know, like there's a lot of barking orders. There's a lot of singing parts. There's singing guitar parts. There's this and that. And Jack is a lot like my puppy, where he'll just, at one point, he'll just like stop listening and do his own thing. And I tell my puppy at the end of the night, God, I love you so much.
I love you so much.
And,
you throw him a bone every once in a while.
Yeah, and that's the exact same thing with Jack. Is like, you know, sometimes he just stops listening and does his own thing, and it's always amazing to kind of just let him go off. It's great with both of those guys, just Jack and Andrew. I think when you're writing songs and you're kind of spearheading the thing, you hear it a real specific way, and that was one of the problems with the format is I was just very harsh about things having to sound a certain way, and then when I hooked up with those two guys, I was like, oh great, well they can make it sound a certain way. Maybe I'll step back for a second and just let them do their own thing, and it's always been better than you know, the way that it originally was in my head.
Well, I think it's that whole idea of getting with smarter, talented people. You know, we talk about golf. The best way to get good in golf is not to go get with people you're totally comfortable with or that you can beat up. The thing to do is put yourself a little at risk and get out with some folks that are actually doing it, because you actually get smarter.
Absolutely, and with the format stuff, it's hard. It's, you know, we had grown up as kids together since we were 13, and so I think that there was probably like this certain level of me. I think I got just a little overexcited, like a certain puppy that's on the floor sleeping now.
Yeah, I don't know what he was eating. I think he's dead. We should check his pulse too.
So it like, to his credit, I mean, to this day, I still think that he's one of my favorite people ever to write songs with. But with Jack and Andrew, I think it was refreshing. Here, I was working with people that didn't live in the same state. And we were doing something new, and I guess getting your come-ups with someone, they start to become you. Now suddenly I started working with two people who I was really like kind of nothing like artistically. Yeah. And that allows you to develop something new.
Yeah, which it sounds like you talked about that whole idea of this is not who we are. It sounds like you guys have found, you know, your voice out there, if you will, and that this is who you really are. I want to talk about, you put out that first record, Aim and Ignite. Love that title, by the way. And it did okay. And you'd mentioned earlier that at some point you'd kind of given up on this notion of commercial success, which I thought was really interesting to hear you say that. But I understand it, because you're either a million miles away from somewhere in the music business or you're an inch away, and it's tough to tell until you actually get there. Fair comment? Fair comment.
You're a couple of breaks away from anything, you know, and to rely on those breaks would just be a tragedy. And then to get them sometimes can be a real blessing. Yeah. You know, but just never think about it like that. You have to be yourself. You have to be an island. You have to surround yourself with people who you trust, and you have to just go about it like you should always blame yourself first.
Tough to do, though. Easy to say, tough to do.
Yeah, for some people.
Particularly if you have some folks around that you can offload. That's part of I kid around that, you know, the primary, you know, one of the great reasons to have a manager is because sometimes you just need to offload and blame it on somebody. And by the way, the good managers understand that. They don't even take it personally. They go, okay, fine. Fuck me. That was me.
I start to feel guilty every time Dalton does that. You know? Yeah, then I'm like, you know, actually, I never blame me. I'll just turn around and say it was Andrew's fault.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. So that's why you have a bass player, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even going to go there with the bass players, man. We've had some, like I say, I'm not going to go there with the bass players. Here's an interesting thing I thought. I talked to your buddy Neil Jacobson. I also had him on the show earlier, you know, in handling all my friends. And we talked about, you know, the difference a producer can make in the equation here, right? And you've worked with a bunch of producers in the past. I thought it was a really great story about how you hooked up with Jeff Bhaskr, because it's, from where I sit in the minds of some other folks, that was a game changer for a guy like you who thinks songs in their head and somebody needs to help pull it out and make it real. Talk about that.
I think Jeff was just big for us because because between me and Andrew and Jack, we could produce our own album without a doubt. I mean, those guys are doing it now. They're producing. Jack's doing songs with Taylor Swift.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like these guys. Andrew's writing scores for movies or whatever it is. Like we're all highly capable, but what we don't know how to do is edit ourselves. And I think you want another artist to kind of edit you, and that's where Jeff came in. Is we sought something unique for our sound that we didn't know very much about at the time, and I had just started listening to a lot of hip hop music, and I had and a lot of Alicia Keys, and I pinpointed I was like, whoever did this and this and this, like these producers, like I want to meet with these producers, and then at the end of the day, it was all the same guy.
Interesting. And it's funny, when I asked that question to Dalton Sim when we had him on the show, I said, you're always looking for who the geniuses are, right? And I said, who came up with that idea? Because on paper, right, he was more of a hip-hop guy, right? Worked with some artists that on paper I wouldn't have associated with where you guys ultimately wound up and think, okay, let's get this guy who hasn't really worked in that area. I thought it was an interesting pick, and he said it was Nate's idea. And I asked Neil Jacobson, he said the same thing.
Yeah, it was my idea.
Well, the idea of looking around, you spotted him and you tracked him down.
I absolutely. Well, I mean, I felt re-energized as the same kid that I was when I was 16 years old, and I used to read liner notes, and you used to look at producers all the time. You'd see whether it's Brendan O'Brien, anyone. You look at producers, you start to kind of become obsessed with a lot of the albums that they made, and I was starting to feel a little stagnant with producers because I thought we could easily do this ourselves, and so I really wanted to be challenged. I was listening to hip hop and I didn't know what the album was going to be. I'm kind of like where I am right now with the next album, and then I kind of discovered hip hop, and I remember telling the guys, and I thought they're gonna think that I'm crazy. I told Jack and Andrew, I said because we all just listen to different things, and I said we're gonna go in with a hip hop producer, and we're gonna make kind of like this, we're gonna put Kanye West beats with these anthemic type of songs, and they were like, yeah, sure, great, whatever,
sure,
whatever you think, and I said the same thing to Dalton. I sent an email to Dalton and the head of our label at the time, John Janik, who had signed us. And I thought that I was going to get a weird... Actually, I did. Their response was, what?
What? That crazy guy's back.
And I said, well, just trust me. John had been trying to sign me since I was 15 years old, since I was in punk bands. And finally, I relented and said, fine.
We'll sign with Fueled by Ramen, which turned out to be a great move for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said, fine. And so John, fortunately, trusted me. And kind of everybody trusted the situation. We all, I think, were just excited to try something new.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how it came out. I thought it was a great story, too, about how you actually, too, who had met, had been tracking him down in the great music business. Yeah, I can't meet. I'm not going to take me. You mentioned Brendan O'Brien. I was kidding him the other day. He'll hate for me for saying this. We were talking about Bon Jovi, and somebody said, Brendan wouldn't even meet with Bon Jovi. And I was going, what? You wouldn't meet with Bon Jovi? Because I didn't really, you couldn't meet with him, right? That's how it goes, right? And so you finally tracked him down in a bar in New York City and sung the chorus?
Yeah, I had just written We Are Young. Yeah, I had just written We Are Young, just the chorus. I hadn't written anything else yet. But I had just written the chorus 3 or 4 days before. And I wasn't even I was feeling good about it, but I wasn't feeling great, and I just remembered I was able to finally corner him. He had canceled on me twice, and at that point we'd already chosen a producer. That's an interesting.
Oh, you already had a producer.
This is an interesting little subplot, but we could go on forever about this one.
Please carry on here. I think our site just crashed, but we're recording, so folks, if you can see us, don't fret. We'll land this plane. Okay. So I'd finally tracked Jeff down. I think both Andrew and Jack were out of town, so it was just me going to meet with him. We sat down. We had a couple drinks. You got to know Jeff in order to really get the story. And Jeff he's a tough guy to crack. Heard.
and he's got a lot of bravado, and I sit there and I'm thinking like maybe he'll want to talk sports or maybe he'll want to talk hip hop. Like I felt like just an energized like puppy talking to him, and he was kind of just like, probably like with this dude.
Leave me alone. I'm working on Beyonce.
Yeah, exactly. And at one point, something must have connected because we did. I think it was alcohol. Something connected. I think it was alcohol, and we started talking, and he said, "Oh, I'm working on this Beyonce stuff. Do you want to check out some of the stuff?" And so went up, listened to a few things, and I was like, "This is your moment. You got to do it." And which is strange because I'm not. That's not. Usually, I'm very much like, come to me. I'm not gonna sell myself to anyone. I think that's another, by the way, massive problem in the music industry is the amount of people that spend time trying to sell themselves.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for having confidence and having an idea of what you want to get out of something. And this is something I've gone through, with different folks in one of my clients, where this notion of selling versus just being enthusiastic and sharing that. And so he must have picked up on that because it worked.
He must have. I think I was just like, I don't know if I was basically being, because like I said, we'd picked a producer. So I think part of me was just thinking like, check out, you got to hear this. And so I sang it and his jaw kind of like dropped to the floor and he just said, well, let's go in the studio tomorrow. And what I didn't know is that what he really wanted it for was, he wanted it for the Kanye West album.
Okay, the deep, dark, untold secret there. Let's play a little bit of that clip here for just a second. I love hearing that song, and we'll hear the hook that got you over the hump here. All right, there it is. We Are Young. You don't know how much I love that song in a kind of aspirational way here, but I can't ever be young again. Cody, though, is young, handsome Cody. You got a question in the chat room there?
Yeah.
I can see it's a lively bunch we got today.
Yeah, we sure do. What's up, everybody? Thanks for your questions in the chat. We're on Ustream chat room right now if you're looking to get your questions in. But this one comes from Hey Annalise. She wanted to know, how long did it take you to write that We Are Young song? And how long does it take you to write songs in general?
It's song dependent. We Are Young was pretty quick. A lot of times they say like, oh well, the big songs, or like if it's a great song you can write it in 5 minutes. We Are Young was pretty quickly written. That actually kind of leaves where the story left off. So I kind of had this idea for a verse. Andrew had put down a couple of different notes for me to sing over for like a verse idea for the song. And so Jeff and I went in and it was just he and I, and all he really wants is the hook. And I'm like, I explain it to him. I say, it's got to sound like this, it's got to have this jangly piano and stuff like that. And he gets me in the vocal booth. And this was when I knew, like, I guess there's just a little bit of confidence in working for so long. I was like, as soon as I sing this, because he's like, if you can hit these notes, yeah, then let's do it in this key. And I was like, this is where, and so I finished the first take, and it's probably on that.
Really?
Like,
That's
yeah,
the first
that track is, well, I mean, it's 8 tracks. It's 8 of my vocal doing that. But the first take through the 8th take is all in there.
So you smoked it right out of the box.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a show off move. I was like, I'm going to show him what's up. And with We Are Young, I had written a verse. But with the way that I write in my head, I don't play an instrument, so I don't hear things necessarily in time. If you listen to We Are Young, the verses are I think a fuckload of a lot faster than the chorus. And so my thought was that when you hit that, and so by the time the bar closes and you feel like my thought was that's going to slow us down and reset us for the big chorus. So we've got this fast verse, but Jeff didn't know that. Jeff didn't know that. Like, I was so used to from my format days writing songs, singing things out, and then people would kind of just build the song around like me just going on and off. And so it was just like, give me a second, and really slow, as slow as the chorus. And so I was like, I'm not going to question this guy. I'm just going to let Jeff do his thing. He's recording all the tracks and everything like that. I go in to try and write lyrics for a second verse, and I come back in, and I just had to bite the bullet. I didn't know Jeff that well, and I just said, you're gonna have to speed up the verse. And he's like, what do you mean speed up the verse? Like, this is a hip hop guy. Like, they work off of like they go in and they just program a beat, and
it's what it is.
It is what it is, which is something that really admire because it stops me from being such a psycho. And he goes, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, you got to do it. And he was pissed off. I remember him trying to figure it out. And sure enough, like by the end of the night, he was like, the tempo map is just the most incredible thing I've ever seen. He tried to put it on the album. Like he was trying to tempo map everything on the album. And me and I mean, Andrew and Jack were just like, we're tired of tempo mapping. Like, can we please just keep a song one speed?
Fucking speed for us. Please help us out here, Nate. But no, and by the way, funny how it goes, man. It works. Works big time, right?
Sometimes it does. But with a song like Some Nights, I guess for the 3 singles on the album, We Are Young was pretty quick. I mean, Jeff and I walked out the next morning with what almost felt like the entire song.
Did he cop that he wanted to use it for Kanye West?
Yeah, totally.
Did you tell him to hold on to that till we put this out?
No, we were like, let's use it for Kanye West, and that was our thought. It wasn't going to be necessarily a fun song, and then everybody around was just like, no. Like I remember the head of our label was just like, not at all.
Well, it's funny too about that song. It's funny. I say this to people all the time. They go, "What does it take to succeed in the music business?" I said, "It takes great songs, right? And everybody thinks they wrote great songs. If you don't believe you wrote one, that's not a great start. And great performances, and you got a great song." What was interesting is I did a little homework for our interview today. Is that it had been released and kind of just did okay and kind of was floundering around there a bit, right?
Yeah.
And then a couple like of these freaking Hail Marys, I call them. These things that you can sit and think about all day long, but you can't possibly plan them happen. One was Glee, right? Mm-hmm. Happens because their stock and trade is taking old songs and bringing them back and kind of rehashing or paying homage. They didn't, at this point, they hadn't really taken any songs, new songs, much less songs that had never even been on the radio. How did that whole thing happen?
I mean, that's where the label can help you. That's where management.
John Janik, right?
Yeah, that's where John Janik, and really, I do have to give the label a lot of credit when you've got a product that they can work with. They had something very, at one point they're not talking to us, and then we have a great song and they're talking to us. Yeah. And to be honest, like their days are filled with having to deal with whether it be Rihanna or whoever. They've got a lot to handle. You have to think of that. Once again, that comes to you thinking about yourself. Mm-hmm. I knew after getting dropped that I was probably never going to get the time of day from the label. But I was signing with Feel by Ramen, which was at the time as a division of Atlantic. Mm-hmm. John had been trying to sign me since I was 15. He was the head of the label. I knew people from Feel by Ramen, just to credit them even more. I mean, they were buying. They wouldn't ask us for tickets to our shows when we'd come play New York. They'd just buy tickets as fans. And so we knew going into it that we had a direct contact at the label. We could talk to them anytime that we wanted. And so, yeah, we roll out We Are Young. I'm sure that the people, the higher ups in the system weren't really talking to us. Mm-hmm. But John just absolutely believed in it. And he got, John and Dalton got enough people around on the business side to start endorsing it. Yeah. And then you just saw it kind of catch.
It's something I say, it takes so much to come together that, I don't know about what you think about it, but for me, I swear to God, when a record comes together and a band, reaches their full potential, it almost feels like a freaking act of God when all those pieces come together at the right moment to make something happen. It's pretty special. But I guess the one that was really interesting that I thought, and I think it's really a sign of the times today, bands in the old days didn't want to do anything commercial. They didn't want their songs showing up in anything that looks like they're trying. But the last bullet out of the gun here was the Super Bowl commercial. And I can remember sitting there watching the Chevy commercial, bang, here comes this song again. It was over the top, and then bang, it was out of the ballpark. Got #1 single for six weeks. Kind of makes you believe in timing and lighting a little bit, right?
Absolutely. And once again, that was just them. That I will credit the label, and I will credit management for putting all that stuff in order, allowing the song to succeed.
You're a little bit younger than some of the artists I manage. Do you have? It doesn't seem like today's artist has the same kind of built-in issues with doing things that get in front of a lot of people, like bands the bands that I was listening to when I was a kid.
Of
They
course,
just wouldn't do that. Wasn't
like
cool. Fuck
the
I'm not
Doors
doing
wouldn't
that.
sell a song, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. No, listen, we were coming at it for the first album. We got an Expedia or a.
Expedia, I think.
I don't want to get my travel website.
I actually did a little more. It was Expedia.
All right, I don't want to,
Call Dalton Sim if you like.
So I mean, that paid our rent. That did everything for us at the time. Mm-hmm. We were doing well touring, but that still is. Then we've got three incredible live musicians. You got to pay them. You got to do all these different things. It's a tough business to keep going. And so when someone says, "Oh, we want to use this little guitar line out of your song,"
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because, I had this conversation. We had this guy, Bob Lefsetz, in here the other day, who's an industry, analyst type. And so much gets, talked about wacky things in the music business. People get lost in who's getting paid and who's not getting paid. The most difficult issue is not getting paid when you're winning. It's getting heard. And today, it seems to me, and I've been doing this a long time, that, we used to fish where this little pond and everybody showed up. Now all the fish are going everywhere else. And artists today, if you're out there watching, you got to write the great songs and you got to let your music go where people are if you want them to hear it. If you want to sit in your room and just be a niche artist, fair enough. But if you want to be heard, you got to go where the folks are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the commercials help. Obviously, the internet helps. I'm not a dialed-in internet guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't have any social media or anything like that. I use Yelp.
Yeah.
But that's really about it. And so I kind of don't. I appreciate that I'm able to somehow be a part of something successful while absolutely not playing the game. But I think that those things are important. I think that something like Twitter, as long as you're not talking about eating a burrito, I think it's an important thing for people to be able to. I think over-connection is terrible. Like I grew up in the '90s. Like if Eddie Vedder was on Twitter, like I wouldn't have loved Eddie Vedder. I love Eddie Vedder because of what I don't know about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I can listen to the lyrics and I there's not this oversharing. I feel like nowadays there's people want to love the person as much as they want to love the music. I've always just wanted to love the music.
Yeah.
So it's nice to sit here and talk about your art and stuff like that, but it's the other stuff that is just it's terrible.
Yeah, what's funny because it's interesting to hear you say that because back in I'm a lot older than you, but there you didn't have this pervasive media that you have today, where every moment gets revved up to a certain level, and it trivializes everything. When I went to see Led Zeppelin, they were either on the cover of Rolling Stone, you heard them on the radio. And when you went to a concert, oh my God, there they are! Fuck, there's Jimmy Page. It was something special. And today, Christ, I feel like I know some of these young pop singers in ways that I don't really need to know.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I understand people need to be celebrities at a certain level, but I agree with my buddy Bob Lefsetz that the artist side of it kind of can get lost very easily in the, hey, I sneezed, do you want to see my thing? Or, waking up and having Kim Kardashian trying to sell the whole world that she wakes up like this when I'm sitting there thinking, I'm betting it's not true. Anyway.
Hey, Renman, I want to get some of these fan questions in here. You guys have been doing a good job, but let's get these guys in here.
Shut up, I get it.
This one comes from Aria. She says, are you guys still friends with old past tourmates like Jack's Mannequin and Paramore?
Absolutely. Touring is a great thing, and we are lucky. That's how I met Andrew and Jack. Is you make friends on tour, and most of the time, if you're touring with someone, it's because you have a mutual respect for each other. And to shout out Jack's Mannequin or Andrew McMahon, and to shout out Paramore, those are two people that was the first tour we ever got was Jack's Mannequin, and they're doing 2,000 seaters. We didn't even have a band name yet, and they brought us out on tour because we're friends. And Paramore kind of just took it to the next level as soon as we signed to Fueled by Ramen. It's like almost like they kind of sheltered us and brought us up through the whole entire thing. And so I keep in touch with all of those people, and it's always a pleasure. And I love the people that we're friends with that are in bands, because the things that we do are not what you think that people in bands would do. You know, picture what you'd think a bunch of like people in bands would do, and then go to the far end of the spectrum, and that's kind of where we're at, which is we'll go see a movie, or you know, it's nice to have friends sometimes.
Nice. All right,
I'm just gonna say though, I hung out with a few of those bands, you know, when I was a promoter, that are those bands that everybody thought they were Van Halen backstage, and people always ask me, so what's it like hanging out backstage with Incubus? And I said, kind of like watching Leave It to Beaver. I said, you wanted to be on Van Halen 1984. You folks will never have that opportunity, but maybe one day we'll tell you about it. Anyway, I like that though. You live a little bit longer that way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I still drink like a fish, but
you know.
Don't we all?
I'm not confessing anymore. You got any other questions in there, Code?
I sure do. Can I get some in?
Yeah, get a couple more, and then I want to talk about your collaborating with some other artists.
That's kind of where I was going with it. She said, this one, let's see, you've become known for great collaborations. Is there anyone you're dying to get in the studio with?
No.
No. I have a feeling they'll find you too, though, right?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not dying to get into the studio anytime soon.
Okay, perfect. And one last one. This one's from Jackie from the UK.
Right.
Just about upcoming music. She said, any unreleased songs possibly on the next album? Example, WTF?
Oh, no, nothing unreleased. Nothing that we've ever played. But What the Fuck will surface in the coming weeks.
Beautiful.
There you have it. Let's talk about these collaborations. You know, again, did a little homework here, and you know, you've had some great success, a couple #1 records outside the band. I'm always interested in how all those things come together. You know, Keisha, Die Young, you know, Pink, Just Give Me a Reason. I love the video that she's playing your little bit out there in concert in Australia, and I'm thinking, wow, God, I fucking love this world we're living in. How do those things come together? You know, who brings those over? These people that you just get pitched on, or you're thinking, you tell Dalton, hey, I'd love to do something with Pink, or how does that work out, this whole pop matchmaking thing?
Well, with Kesha, I had just written a song, and John Janik took it and basically was just like, this is going to be a big song. Gave it to his people. I wasn't in the studio. I literally just wrote all the lyrics. I just wrote the melody for the chorus, and just I was just like, yeah, whatever.
Boom.
I've since learned to take my name off of. I've got songs out now that I've written, but I no longer put my name on things.
Oh, okay, because you're not proud of it, or you just don't need the attention?
I just don't care.
Okay, well, you know, I've always wanted to write a song, Nate.
I mean, you know what? Then I'm gonna start.
Renman.
Yeah, well, then you're gonna start singing the Renman.
That'd be like a good producer name, Renman. You know, all these guys.
But with Pink, that was another John Janik thing. He, I mean, it helps to have friends
in high places.
Yeah, friends
Good.
who. I guess the great thing about John is he believes in me probably more than my own parents believe in me. He believes in me so much that it's almost just like, stop believing in me. Mm-hmm. Like,
you don't want to actually, you know, he takes that back, John. You know, I'd like to meet this John Janik guy, because as a business guy, I admire what he put together, this little label, and now he's running the big mothership over there.
I mean,
which I could just only imagine how that fucks some of those guys up over there. Here's this guy comes from the outside, now he's running the whole thing and killing it.
I can try and put him in this seat.
Okay, would you do that for me?
Yeah.
You know, look at Dick. He's quivering at the thought of it. Look at that. Okay.
He's a dog. He's a dog guy too.
He is a dog. Yeah. Okay. Here's one though. Funny story, because I know we got a bunch of questions here, and we got to wrap it up. So Nate and I were out playing golf. Yeah, that's where I first met you, right? And so we're taking a little break at the turn, and you told me this funny story about, hey, you know, I got this song coming out on this new Eminem record, and you'd made the comment at like 12 o'clock or whatever we were having lunch. You know, I actually haven't heard it yet. I'm hope to be able to hear it. So about, maybe an hour later, we were on the 14th hole.
Yeah, like 3 holes later.
Okay. I won't mention any names because some of my Bel Air buddies may be watching. Somebody got a message that a song had been leaked right? And so you, me, and Neil sat in the corner of the 14th tee.
I'm not talking. We didn't. No, we were outside of. We were outside of the.
Well, you're not a member yet, so you're good. Okay, you can blame it on the other guy, Neil. Okay, but it was an emergency, for Christ's sake. Okay. Anyway, I thought what was just the most beautiful 2013 moment in the music business. Here is the writer of the song, hearing the song after probably hundreds of thousands of people are here, us sitting in the corner behind the trees listening to that song Headlights. Talk about how that one all came together.
That would put me on record of saying anything about that, and I don't want to do that.
Oh, okay.
I will just say this. I did everything in my power on that hole to not cry. Mm-hmm. It was just it was a magical thing. I mean, that was, I had written that song in the format. Coincidentally, it was the song that kind of, where my compulsive, like, I guess just like my compulsive songwriting, just like it needs to be like this, it needs to be like this, was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back.
In the format.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's always all these other
Sure.
problems, but it was after a long night of working on that song. Mm. And that was always my favorite song. I turned around and I brought it to Fun. That was the first thing that we worked on, and it just didn't work. Mm. And I was sitting in the studio with Jeff and Emil, who had produced Some Nights. It was just me and those guys, and we just like to, I don't know, we don't like to call it work. We just actually like to get together and have a bunch of drinks and sit in a studio and just kind of do stuff. And so we were going over stuff, and I was like, well, I mean, I got this song. It's never going to see the light of day, but do you mind if I play it for you guys? So Jeff gets behind the piano, because Jeff has become, I mean, Jeff can just read my mind now when it comes, you know, with the Pink song. It's like we wrote it right there on the spot, just the two of us looking at each other, you know, and the chords going, he's going with the chords and I'm singing, and we just have a great relationship like that. And so I'm doing that with Headlights. At this time, it was called Jump in the Shark. And it was all about kind of my disenchanted, I was disenchanted with the music industry. And I was disenchanted with kind of where my life was headed at that point. And so we're working on it. I guess, you know what, I'm telling the story of the song. So I'm working on it, and we work on it that night, and they're just like, this is our favorite song that, you know, this is our favorite song you've ever done. And Emil just says, I think Eminem is gonna love this song. And I'm like, what's this? It's a song. It's literally, it's a verse, it's a chorus. There's no longer a second verse, chorus, a bridge, and another like bridge. It goes on for hours. It's like the original version just goes on for hours, and it's very woe's me and all this other type of stuff. And Emil, he wanted to change. I don't let anyone touch the lyrics ever. Mm-hmm. And Emil just wanted to change a couple of the lyrics, and I thought, all right, let's change a couple of the lyrics. And sure enough, next thing you know, we heard like Eminem was really interested in the song, and then you and I are on the tee listening to it, and I got to say that it was my favorite song that I had ever written, and it is now it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
It's funny when I remember
because of what he did.
Yeah, and watching you guys and watching Neil, because I don't have any musical talent, man. There was no way I was going to be able to do what you do, you know. But I love watching that process happen, and having heard you tell me at lunch, and then seeing it and hearing the song, right, as a father, right, as somebody who can feel some of those things from a different perspective, and to see, you know, to have some kind of syncing up with Eminem in some ways. He's sobered up. He's going through all the things and coming to these awakenings about how difficult it is to be a parent and all these things that go on and the issues that go on between, you know, fathers and sons and mothers and all of that stuff. I thought it was freaking powerful, right? But I couldn't help thinking as we were walking down the fairway, this whole notion of timing and lighting, right? Great idea. Without the right timing and the right lighting, doesn't seem like a great idea. You get that great moment, get the light on at the right time, and the moment, bang, and it just goes off the charts. And I thought it was a great one. And it just, you know, it speaks to the magic of this business sometimes, as fucked up as it can be, and maybe we'll end on this, there are some great moments, a little like golf, that make all those shitty moments feel like $1 million.
Are we talking about golf right now?
My head is moving to the golf here now. I'm looking at my watch going, dude, we got to get out there by noon to get this done. But isn't it true, this whole timeline, you work your whole life, and that's why, again, I want to thank you for being on here today, because this whole story, and I feel so strongly about trying to give people an idea of how this business really works and be able to give them a dose of reality. And the reality is, bands like fun, what you've done in your career, and you probably get embarrassed yet, is really the right way to do it. You learn, and the question I'll ask you is, having gone through 10, 12 years of becoming the overnight sensation, as you've pointed out at the Grammys, how does the ride feel now? Does it feel better having gone through all that grind?
I mean, I still got a massive chip on my shoulder. Mm-hmm. I think we all, me and the other two guys, I think we will always have a chip on our shoulder, and I mean, it's probably not a good thing for, like, when I go see a psychiatrist. Probably not a good thing, but I've always appreciated that. I've always appreciated being looked over every single time. So I always still want to be looked over. I always want to be looked over, because I think it's important to believe in yourself more than anything, to always think that you're gonna show them, and that it's that drive. It's not relying on someone else to do it for you. It's doing it yourself.
It's less than delicate. It's that whole fuck the gatekeepers. If you want to do something great, I happen to be in the music business. You're in the music business, but I believe it's true across the board. If you want to do something great in life, you got to have a little bit of that. I'm going to make this happen, because there will be thousands of people that will tell you, "Hey, Nate Ruess, you're not worth a shit. Don't lose the day gig." And if your compass is set by those people, you don't have a freaking chance, in my opinion. I might be wrong about that, folks, but that's the way I've lived my life, and I see that story in your whole ride here.
Yeah, and I always, I mean, I hope we never lose that kind of. Listen, we fought so long. The three of us, even before that, I was probably the most lucky out of me and Jack and Andrew, and actually the rest of our band members too, who have been hacking away at it forever. I got signed to a major label, so I automatically had money. We stayed at hotels every time. Andrew used to like dive in, like dumpster dive, like he used to have to do that to get through everything.
Yeah.
And for us, when we started Fun, we wanted to be like Guster. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, we had a big song and then another big song and stuff like that. And you don't say no to that at all. But in my mind, like, I still just want to be Guster. I still just want to be Pearl Jam. I think to like the radio, all that type of stuff, like, it's fantastic while it's here, but eventually it goes away.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny there. I'll leave with this out there. I remember watching Keith Richards. It was on VH1, and they were asking Keith, and they have the close-up on his then probably 50-year-old grizzly face with his cigarette, and they go, "So Keith, what would you have done if you weren't a rock star?" And he goes, "This is what I do," right? And I sat there and thought, but it said it all. And for musicians out there, if you love this and this is what you do, I look at you and think the same thing. You're not going to be selling real estate. This is what you do.
I might be selling real estate.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, you'd be a damn fine salesman. Anyway, I want to thank you for coming in here today. Next week, folks, I'm going back to my day gig as a manager with my friends in Incubus. We're heading down to South America. You been to South America yet?
I wish.
Dude, let me tell you, you wish. Dalton, South America, that's a great place down there. Fans are enthusiastic, off the hook. This is our third trip. We're going down to Mexico. We're going to Peru, Panama City, Argentina, Brazil, Chile. What am I leaving out here, Joe? Colombia, thank you, and we're going to have some fun. But it means we won't be doing any more webcasting probably till the end of the year. I'll probably do a couple off the hook, in the moment things from down in South America. We'll take a camera and a thing, but we're going to start up again back in January. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to apologize. I'm thankful you all got over to our Ustream site. You crashed the freaking car today here. It's like, God, we got to, probably take note of this. Get Nate back here again. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining us here today. We're going to go play a little golf now. Fun. Any parting shots for our folks today?
I hate that question.
Okay, all right, let's go. Well, we'll end on that one. Okay, I did good till the end here. Okay, we're going to go just hit it. My name's Steve Rennie. The website's RenmanMusicAndBusiness.com. Thanks to Nate Ruess for joining us today, and we will see you in the new year. See ya!